ended a miserable week right about there.
Oh, I'll swear this land is almost wholly unfit for cultivation. To a farmer, it'd be just like a desert.
Well, let's put Major Long and his 1820 opinions to rest. Fact is, Great American Desert was printed on maps for over 35 years. Most of this area east of the Rockies. The Major didn't figure on the people who settled here. Almost 1 million acres of the finest farmland in the country. But believe me, they had to work to make it that good. They had to coax the land, with water mostly. And it's the clever system that they and the government built that I, and all the characters I'll be playing, want to tell you about.
It's gold! It's gold, I tell you! It's gold! Gold! Woo-wee! It's gold!
Well, that got the people coming out here all right. They didn't exactly pick the gold off the ground, as some of them had expected to do. No, it was very hard to come by, and so was food. Expensive and scarce because of the long haul from the east. Maybe that's when the gold seekers and others decided to settle the land we're talking about and grow their own food, nature's green gold. Wasn't long, though, before these people bumped into a problem. Good land, but hardly any rain. Only 12 to 13 inches a year. Less than 1/4 the amount averaged in central and eastern agricultural states. This part of the West had full rivers and streams in the spring, less and less flow in the summer. And these conditions were complicated by occasional years of drought.
That's about the time the irrigation started, and ditch digging and reservoir building to reserve or save surplus spring runoff water for when it was crucially needed later. Why, in 1870, when the Union colony came, the place is called Greeley now, to be followed by others at Fort Collins, Loveland, Longmont, and the rest, there were already a dozen or so irrigation systems in operation. Everybody caught the ditch digging fever, but it was soon pretty clear that direct stream flow would go only so far. Then there was a flurry of reservoir building to catch the off-season and flood flows. For about 20 years, over 60 reservoirs were built. Mutual stock companies were formed, water rights legalized, everything quite orderly. Yes, there was a hitch. Always is. The land under irrigation increased faster than the water supply could handle. Farmers on the east side of the Continental Divide said, "How about all that water on the west side? Much of it is just surplus over there. Down here is where we really need it."
Oh, the dream of diverting water from the Colorado River over on the west goes back to maybe 1880. But things really didn't get going until 1933. There's no way to tell you the amount of work that was done. Just look at these documents. They represent just a small part of the work of men in this area, of senators and congressmen and reclamation engineers. It's hard to believe the amount of detail involved. All the meetings, the reports, the persuading of legislators, the negotiations. The organization of a Water Users Association in 1934. A group that had to raise money by selling stock and by getting contributions from business, from railroads, from ditch companies and cities. But the idea was making headway, and the Northern Colorado Water Conservancy District, under state law, was set up by an overwhelming public vote. Finally, in 1937, Congress authorized the Colorado Big Thompson as a reclamation project. Well, all this work created a classic water diversion and management system. Let's take a look at the large areas and the problems involved in fitting together the jigsaw pieces of surplus water, of rugged terrain, and agricultural land. Here is the thirsty farmland. And this is the Colorado River. This is the Continental Divide, the barrier that separates them. This is where the water from Grand Lake starts through the Adams Tunnel. In about that direction, a little over 13 miles, straight through Granite Mountains. I came to work on the project, in 1946. That was about the time the tunnel was finished. Well, come with me and I'll show you how big that tunnel is. It's 9 feet 9 inches in diameter, big enough to drive a Jeep through. So precise was the engineering that when the east and west bores met in the middle of the tunnel, the difference in line and elevation was less than the height of a penny. Thinking of the tunnel now, I'm reminded of the men who worked long hours in the dark underground, moving ahead inches at a time, aware of the dangers of being crushed in a cave-in or drowning in an unexpected underground stream, yet not one single life was lost. During the war years, the work was slowed down and sometimes stopped because of material and manpower shortages. But by 46, we got the rest of the project going.
It was agreed that the water in Grand Lake was to be held at virtually the same level. But the lake would lose water through the tunnel. So, in a manner of speaking, Grand Lake was enlarged by damming the Colorado and forming Shadow Mountain Reservoir. Now, to make the whole collection system work, a final big reservoir was needed. It so happened that below Shadow Mountain there was a great natural basin. The reclamation engineers formed the dam and dikes. Millions of cubic yards of earth and rock they used to create the main storage area, Lake Granby. Willow Creek was another source of water for Granby. A dam was constructed there, and the collected water could be run into Granby. I guess run isn't quite the right word. Willow Creek Reservoir was 170 feet lower than Granby. The water had to be lifted that distance by a pump, so it could run into the big reservoir.
We're not finished with the pumping, not by any means. You see, Granby is almost 200 feet lower than Shadow Mountain, so the water has to be lifted again, this time in great quantities. The job of the great heart of the system, you might say. A pumping plant as tall as a 16-story building. Now, it doesn't look or seem that tall because 3/4 of it is underground. Imagine water flowing through 3 conduits, each 7 feet in diameter, and being pumped into a gigantic pipe, 11 feet in diameter.
There are 3 vertical shaft pumps, and each one is turned by a 6,000 horsepower motor. Can you guess just how much water these pumps lift? In just 2 minutes, they supply enough for all of one person's needs for his entire lifetime. This is the way the snow water is collected. Run off into Shadow Mountain and down into Granby. From Willow Creek up into Granby. Stored water from Granby into Shadow Mountain to flow across Grand Lake and through the Adams Tunnel to the east slope. After the water leaves the tunnel, it drops more than half a mile to Flatiron. Then it's pumped up into Carter Lake on one side, and on the other flows along the Hanson Feeder Canal and into Horsetooth.
The water's been pretty lazy and dreamy over on the west slope, but when it comes through the tunnel here on the east, that's when it has to go to work. You can't see much water past this regulating pond because it travels underground for about 2 miles and comes out in kind of a holding reservoir with a pretty name, Mary's Lake.
Under the ground it goes again, and down the mountain in some huge pipes called penstocks through the Estes power plant into Lake Estes. The lake was made by putting Olympus Dam across the Big Thompson River. That's how the project got half its name, you see. The Colorado Big Thompson. From Lake Estes, the water travels 10 miles and drops 1,000 feet into Pinewood Reservoir. Then down the penstocks another 1,000 feet or so into Flatiron. Carter Lake is the first major reservoir on the eastern slope. But we have that difference in elevation problem again. Carter is 240 feet above Flatiron. You're familiar with the solution, I know. A pump lifts the water that distance up through a pressure tunnel. However, something new has been added. If Flatiron needs water, the flow in the tunnel can be reversed, making Carter the source of supply. The pump now serves as a generator. It's a clever arrangement. From Flatiron, the water flows north by gravity along the Charles Hanson Feeder Canal and on to Horsetooth. You'll see where the water goes in a minute. But now, let's take a look at the power aspect of the project.
First of all, let me say that I am pleased to know that people are interested in seeing how we generate electric power. Now, my job as project manager with the Bureau of Reclamation is usually backstage. So it's really nice to have visitors. I'm sure you know that all 6 of these power plants are hydroelectric. The water drops half a mile or so. On the way down, it's directed through the turbines that turn generators. There are few systems that can produce electricity more efficiently and with absolutely no pollution. The best part of it is we will never be short of this water energy because it's renewed each year from the high mountain snows. Together, these produce enough electricity to supply all the needs of about 100,000 homes through some 700 miles of high-voltage transmission lines like these, which not only carry the power generated here to our customers, but are the central power link between the eastern and western United States.